The precarious debt burdens of a number of African nations have worsened due to the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The group of 20 major economies initially offered the world's poorest countries temporary repayment relief on debt owed to the official creditors under its debt service suspension initiative, and also launched a new framework designed to tackle unsustainable debt stocks. Now, Zambia, which became Africa's first pandemic-era sovereign default late last year, says it has requested a restructuring of its debt under the framework supported by the G20. What other African countries are likely to take the same route as Zambia? Matt Keniger, an associate practice lead at Frontier View, joins us now. Hello, Matt. Thank you for joining us again. Well, you cover sub-Saharan Africa. Which African countries are currently facing the greatest fiscal pressure? And in your view, is there a risk of more countries following Zambia into default over the coming years?
Well, thank you for having me on the program today. So certainly there are a number of African or sub-Saharan African countries that are facing quite significant fiscal pressure. Those include, Ethiopia, Angola especially, even Ghana, Kenya, and I would also say Mozambique are the ones that we are watching the closest in terms of their fiscal positions. Nigeria and South Africa also are facing extra fiscal pressure, but they're not nearly as bad as other ones I've just mentioned. The message really, I suppose, is that all major markets are going to face quite considerable public spending and fiscal pressure over the course of 2021, and this will be a feature of the economic landscape. In terms of whether we expect there to be defaults, our base case view really is that we don't expect there to be further defaults, and this is for a couple of reasons. One is that there are a number of debt restructuring initiatives, like the G20 initiative, that are taking place. Also, most of these countries that I've mentioned have engaged with the IMF to help them through these difficult periods. And additionally, many of these markets, including South Africa and Nigeria, can afford to borrow domestically. So we don't expect another sort of set of defaults in Africa over the course of the year.
So how will fiscal pressures affect the growth prospects for African economies over the next few years?
Well, broadly, I would say it's worth noting, I would say that the growth prospects for African economies are quite positive for 2021 and 2022. But I would say that the private sector really is going to be driving the recovery. Public debt is the single biggest risk to growth in 2021 across the continent. And we are expecting, as a result, governments to consolidate spending. Most governments are probably going to have to raise taxes, cut infrastructure investments, delay infrastructure projects such as electricity and transport infrastructure. And so overall, this will curtail growth rates. They are probably going to be 1 or 2 percentage points lower in 2021 than they otherwise would have been if there was not this significant fiscal pressure across the continent.
Now, as governments attempt to stabilize their government finances, how will the private sector be affected?
So in our view, there are probably 3 main areas or 3 main ways in which the private sector will be affected. So the first is that there certainly is going to be less public sector demand. So companies looking to get involved in infrastructure projects, sell to the government. Government departments are likely to cut procurement budgets. So certainly less demand from potentially very big customers in certain markets. Companies will have to adapt to offering cost-saving solutions rather than expecting very strong demand. The second major thing that companies should look out for from weak government finances is the likelihood of tax increases. So we've already seen governments increase taxes, but because governments are likely to undershoot their revenue targets at the beginning of this year, we are expecting tax increases. So certainly something to prepare for. And the other major implication of weak public finances is currency volatility. So, for example, South Africa, we are expecting a budget speech at the end of this month. And if a deterioration in public finances is revealed, that could drive short-term rand volatility. So in markets where public finances deteriorate, currency volatility certainly is a risk for businesses this year.
All right, Matt, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.